Hello and welcome to the August 2014 edition of the TetraCast RPG Sites Monthly Podcast. My name is Zack Reese. I am your host. Joining us today is David Kreinberg.
Yo.
Adam Vitale.
How is it August already? Summer just flew by.
I can't believe it, just because not only is Gamescom around the corner, but they're already talking about E3 again. It's one of those periods.
Well, it almost feels like E3 was yesterday, or, it's like, wait, that was 2 months ago?
It's really bad.
I can't imagine E3 again right now.
No, and we're still working on stuff from it, too.
Yeah.
It's been kind of nuts. Oh, and by the way, joining us for this month's podcast is someone we haven't had in a bit, Elizabeth Henges.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. We needed someone to fill the gap.
Might be quieter with Simon not around.
Yeah. Well, considering last time it was just Simon and Ron yelling at me. Yeah. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful that not to say that won't happen again, but we'll enjoy it ourselves. So, yeah, for this month, for July, it wasn't really that eventful as far as releases are concerned. Yep. And so, but at least for this time, we're going to be kind of delving back into our backlogs. I'm assuming everyone here kind of just, spend time playing the old games they didn't get a chance to play it before.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice. Well, yeah, sometimes it's nice in the summer to get a break from the new releases and just, get time to actually play the games rather than buying them.
That's pretty much. I've gotten so many games, and they had that Steam Summer Sale, and I bought a bunch of games, and I haven't touched it. I did what everyone else does, and tried to feed into that contest they were doing where you were a part of a team and trying to beat everybody else before so you can get the games off your wish list.
Yeah.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes. You can.
We just added Erren to our call. Apparently she was having trouble with her Skype just a moment ago.
Yeah, it's still kind of messed up, so hopefully,
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, sounds fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good. We started just a little bit ago, so we were trying to get Erren back in the call, so good to see that you joined us after a little break in between. So, yeah, we were just talking about how July was a pretty lazy month, all things considered.
Yeah, there really wasn't a lot going on, I guess, in terms of anything, really.
Well, there was the Destiny beta. I didn't get into that. Any of you guys play Destiny at all?
Nah. I did not, even though today my fiance was like, hey, you should have downloaded the Destiny beta, and I was like, you should have said something like last week, dude.
That ended last Sunday. I made the joke today about that too, and I really wanted to play it just because I was a big Halo fan, and Bungie, of course, the creators of it, worked on Destiny, and it's got the RPG hooks that I was kind of interested in. I felt like, because I enjoyed Mass Effect, like this is kind of my next step with the whole MMO aspect to it, but no, I only played like 20 minutes of it, and I was really excited for it. Just life happened.
Yeah, the thing with betas is I tend to not really like to play them anyway, because I want to, like, when the game finally comes out, I just kind of want to get into it then and not have to go through stuff that I've already seen,
Yeah, it's like when you're playing, well, with the beta, of course, you're worried about, like, the wipe at the end of it all. It's like, I did that work. The most you got out of it was the experience, but it's the same with me and demos. Like, you just...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I feel the same way, which is why I might, I'll download a demo, but I might try it for a couple minutes, and then usually I turn it off.
Yeah. It's mostly... If it's straight up like a demo where all you do is join a battle or something like that, I'm more for that, but when they start to get into the story stuff, it's like, no, I don't want to get a little piece of this. I want to just sit down and soak it in when it comes out. So, for all things considered, Destiny, the beta, I'm sure, I heard that there was some pretty solid amount of content. I think you can only get to, level 8, if I'm not mistaken, in the beta. And so there was only kind of pieces of it, and I'm sure with the beta that they didn't put a lot of stuff into it because they're just trying to save it for the big release.
Yeah.
So, like, story stuff and things like that. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much par the course for most games that have a pretty involved story, so.
Yeah, especially with a game like that isn't full-on MMORPG. It's more like, from people have kind of compared it to, like, Phantasy Star Online, where you join into, like, a hub, and then you have, like, these missions that you get from a person, and then you go off into these certain areas and take on these quests, or, like, get dropped in the middle of a certain map and just start from there, things like that. So, it wasn't that cohesive at this time.
Well, all in all, it seems like it ended up being, a good idea that Bungie did this, because I know, at least before the alpha, which was, probably a month ago now or more, there's a little bit of hesitation on what this game actually is, and, getting people a chance to play it, obviously gets people talking about it, and, now it's, if it wasn't already, might be one of the biggest releases of the fall, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously
it's kind of funny because when the beta came out, a lot of people that I know who play Final Fantasy XIV, like, you could tell that Destiny, like, a lot of people had gone to play Destiny because the server was pretty much dead during that time.
I mean, it's a lot of the whole explanation about what Destiny was on Bungie because they could not explain that game. I mean, it's just like an RPG where it's like it's hard to explain it until you kind of play it yourself. So I also got that. Like the people that I follow on Twitter who play Final Fantasy XIV, they were all talking about Destiny at that time, which was weird. And so it kind of makes you wonder, not to be critical of it, but like when Destiny actually does come out, like what's that going to do to the other games were like on the place, because it's Destiny obviously is only going to be on Xbox One and PS4, so it's not like it's going to affect the PC market at all. But like, how many of those people who are console gamers are going to be playing Destiny instead of Final Fantasy XIV or another MMO? I'm sure it's not going to be that big a difference. They probably just wanted to play it because it was free at the time. Like, make them also try to pay for Final Fantasy XIV that they put their time into. Like, I wonder what that's going to do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I already know a couple people who have already left the game for Destiny. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean it's okay. I mean they've played for a while, and I can understand why they left. But I mean, they wanted to move on to something else. That's perfectly all right with me.
Well, how soon is it until Final Fantasy XIV has their next big, like, content update?
Well, the next meaningful patch, I guess you could say, isn't going to be coming out until probably sometime in October at this point.
Oh, yeah. And obviously Destiny comes out in September. I mean, it could be the thing where they just, in between, when they hit the end of what Final Fantasy XIV offers, they can jump over to Destiny, because Destiny doesn't have like a monthly subscription or anything like that. So
yeah,
they could
I guess at that point, it kind of depends on the long game. Like, what is Destiny going to be doing, a year from now, and what's Final Fantasy XIV going to be doing a year from now?
Well, I mean, at least for the PlayStation 4 stuff, they promised a bunch of content and first access. So it's kind of like Phantasy Star Online. Once again, going back, it's what they have to keep kind of adding in missions and things like that to the end. All these their big raids that they do. They have to keep adding those arena battles and those big. I forget the term that they use, but basically it's like when everyone gets together and goes out on this, takes down like a big monster.
Oh, you're talking about a raid?
Yeah, just those raids that they do. Yeah, they said they're going to be planning more of those, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they carry Destiny, just because it's not a typical, just an online game where, they have all these different systems. Like, it's not like Final Fantasy XIV where, you have this big world and there's always something going on at any point. You can just join a party. Here it's like, when there's also a single-player part of it, like when you hit the end of the story, where do things go from there? It's how much they want to invest in that. But, as Adam said, the beta was apparently extremely successful. I think they said, like, over 4 million people participated in the beta alone. So that's kind of nuts, considering it's not even out yet. So,
Yeah, I think it's definitely, like, there's lots of big games coming out, you know, like there's the typical Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, but, like, Destiny's got, like, the most, like, I think, you know, all the commotion about it, you know, it's a new IP, it's on the next-gen consoles, you know, had this huge beta, so yeah, it could be pretty huge. And there isn't much, there's a couple of other games coming out in September, but, like, nothing nearly on the same scale, so it could be massive.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's really kind of odd how things have kind of shifted recently, where September has been getting more and more crowded, and October has been slowly just shrinking down a bit. It's kind of funny because,
wait, you think so? I mean,
yeah, because like Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, that was
it's always going to be a year-by-year thing.
September. Well, I'm not speaking, you know, the month itself. I'm talking about just strictly how things have been going lately, where Dragon Age was delayed until November, and then Middle-earth.
Yeah, Dragon Age moved to November. Middle, what's it called? It's not Lord of the
Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor.
Moved to September, I guess.
Yeah, the end of September.
Well,
although I
then
think
they moved Dragon Age because they delayed Battlefield until, like, early next year, right?
Yeah, Battlefield, they delayed that to springtime to give them more time. Dragon Age, they said they needed some more time, and EA's apparently lately been all about give them as much time as they need to make it look good, I guess.
Yeah, EA said something about that a couple months ago. Like, they'd be willing to delay games after what happened with Battlefield last year. Like, well, I guess...
Well, like, and so September, I mean, honestly, August and September are, like, kind of nuts, because September is like, well, you know, because you got Destiny, but you also got Danganronpa 2, it's coming out that month. You got Arno Surge and Natural Doctrine.
Well, there's a handful of these Japanese, more niche titles, certainly.
Yeah, but as far as, like, the Western side, I mean, you have Destiny and you have Middle-earth, but they're on opposite sides of the month. And, you know, obviously different audiences and things like that. So this entire fall is pretty crowded as far as just, well, it's weird. It's like October's not that crowded, but September and November it's kind of nuts because you also have like the Pokemon games in November and Persona Q in November. I mean, I don't know how big Persona Q is going to be because that's a dungeon crawler. It's not anything like the other Persona games.
I think the popularity of Persona 4 and like now they have the Persona 4 Arena games, and I think just the brand alone is worth something now. I mean,
It's true. I mean, it kind of filters out to the rest of its stuff. But, you know, people are just waiting for next year for when 5 comes out, so who knows?
Who knows when that's coming out, though?
Yeah, it's kind of weird because, I mean, what was it? Persona 4, they announced it for localization in July of the same year, and then it came out like in that early December, was it? Like December 8th or something?
If I remember right, they announced the localization pretty early, and it came out pretty soon after, because,
like
I mean...
Anime Expo or something like that?
It came out in 2008, which was 2 years after the PS3 came out, so they kind of had to kind of get that out there, because, you know...
It's kind of funny, going back and seeing like all these games that had their first title come out after the PS3 came out, like the Art and Alico series. Like, the first one, I think, came out in 2007 on the PlayStation 2 of that series, the trilogy. Just thinking about that and how people are reacting to games being announced for the last consoles, even today.
There aren't very many games. Well, I guess there are. Well, I guess Persona, I forgot, Persona 5 is PS3 still.
The Tales of Systeria.
Yeah.
Get that.
And those, could easily be 2015, or they are.
Definitely.
Yeah, although I wouldn't be surprised if Namco ports that game to PS4 with, like, extra content later on for more money.
Oh, definitely. Well, they're spending all this time with, creating new assets and everything for Zestiria. They're going to port it. They're going to make a sequel to it. They're going to try to write off of that.
Yeah.
It. That's, like, their main thing.
That's how they operate. That's how a lot of companies operate now.
Well, it's reassuring, I'm sure, that seeing... It's really kind of crazy because, like, I bought a PlayStation 3 the spring that it came out, and so, or like spring, like March 2007, and so at that time, like, there was barely any RPGs. Like, the only games that they really had at that time was like folklore and like enchanted arms and stuff like that. It's kind of dry. I mean, folklore is a great game, but it was pretty dry as far as those games. And it's like now they're already announcing like these big PS4 titles, and even like Western, like Xseed announcing like Akiba's Trip 2 for the PS4. It's like, yeah, that'll come here, later this year or something like that. And it's like, that's really good to hear, because now I don't have to like be too concerned that it's gonna do a repeat. I mean, it wasn't feeling like it was anyway, but at the same time, just how things were before, it's kind of crazy. Let's be fair, I wasn't like aware of how the PlayStation 2 went at that time,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd argue. I'm not exactly sure what you're arguing. It seems to be very similar. I mean, I wouldn't call Akiba's Trip or what else is there? Natural Doctrine, like as big RPGs on PS4 yet. We're still waiting for those.
Well, to be fair, it's like,
I mean, it's probably still gonna be a bit, but I think it's important that we're seeing a lot of the more niche stuff already come over, and
if Yakuza came out here, I'm sure people would be...
Once those games come out, then hopefully by then the bigger titles will also start to come out.
And that's how it was before, like with the PS3. Like, it wasn't until 2008 that some of the bigger titles came out. Like, Valkyria Chronicles didn't come out until that year. Even if it was at that time, of course, people were like, well, whatever, it's a strategy game. And then it became bigger. But even like, was it Metal Gear Solid 4 didn't come out to that year. So it's like the bigger titles are always like a couple years out because they need time. So, I don't know. I haven't heard much from Liz. Hey, Liz.
Hey.
Do you own a new console?
The only console I really own is a Wii U, so I don't really have much to say.
Oh, you're investing in the...
Waiting for Xenoblade X, or what's it called?
Xenoblade Chronicles X, the dumbest name. I mean, it's really probably a good game, but man, it's just... They couldn't call it Xenoblade 2 or something. Like, they had to put an X at the end, so it's XCX or something.
Maybe it has some meaning in the context of the story. I don't know.
Is that what they're really thinking, or is it just...
I don't know. Like, we don't really even know if it's like a direct sequel or more of just a, like, in the same universe, or is it just kind of a successor? I don't even, like, in terms of the story and whatnot, like, same developers, similar gameplay, but I don't know.
Like, we really like that X in that title. Let's put two of them in there. And X squared. Oh, that's a different game.
I mean, it's actually Cross. So who knows?
Xenoblade Chronicles Cross.
Oh, yeah, that's what they say in Japan. It's Cross, not X.
And it sounds so much better.
Yeah,
I guess. Button on your controller. So yeah, I think that as far as, but I mean, like, even if some of the bigger titles aren't coming here, I'm still excited for the stuff that is coming here. Like, even if I'm not in the company that is really into these games, like the Neptunia Victory sequel, people are saying it's going to go on the PS3, but it's coming to the PS4. I think that's really cool that even if the graphics aren't that amazing, I think it's just the fact that it's already seen those super niche titles already go there. Yeah, and even at Tokyo Game Show.
I bet you're super excited for Omega Quintet, right?
Not really. I don't know what that game is, but it's even looking at all those. It's like an idle RPG.
The first time I saw that game, I was like, this is totally a Zack game.
I'd probably buy it. I was thinking. I'd probably pick it up. I mean, I'll be reviewing it, I'm sure, but it's that, and then, but I guess the cool thing was, like, not that long ago, someone got like a flyer where they were teasing Disgaea 5, which was obvious because everyone knew that was coming, but. If that's going to be on the PS4, it's going to be kind of cool to see what they can do with that technology.
Didn't Nice already announce that they're working on a PS4 title? So that's
what I'm saying is that they announced that.
Supposedly it's going to be announced at Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah, so it's likely Disgaea 5. I mean, what else would it be?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's probably going to be that, but you know.
Yeah, I think it's at the same time, like, all these companies having so much trouble lately, it's kind of nice to see that happening. And, it's like you hope that with Sega and Atlas joining together, that there's a much more, a bigger opportunity, a bigger reason to bring over some of their titles. Like, if they just straight up announced that Yakuza 5 is coming here, and, like, Phantasy Star Online 2, let's port that to the PS4, let's bring it here too, or something like that. It's because it's more closer to the PC, the PS4 is, so it's seeing stuff like that.
I mean, I
would kind of hope it.
I think the Japanese next gen titles will come. It just might take a while. You know, they're not as console centric as they were, as they used to be. So, but. Yeah.
Japan needs it right now. They need.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing. I saw that report the other day about how the mobile market had reached over $5 billion, and it was
hardware and software combined or something.
Yeah, and I opened the thread and I read a couple lines and I was just like, well, that's just
how it is. Yeah.
And it's but at the same, that's why. Seeing Japanese companies come out in front and say that they're going to make games for the new consoles, it's even if that's going on, it's you kind of hope that it follows, but at the same time, it kind of opens your eyes and also says that, well, even if Japan's market is shrinking for that industry, it's they can see that the people in the West are big on very Japanese games. And so still being willing to do that kind of thing. And, there's plenty of other games that are kind of more tailored towards us, like Bloodborne, and that new, what's that new...
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I'm trying to think of the Grasshopper.
Oh...
It was Lily Bergano, or
no, that game was canceled.
Oh yeah,
they canceled. Kind of molded that into something else.
Is that game even an RPG though? I don't even know.
It is. It's an online RPG.
But it's like a free to play thing, right?
Yeah,
it's got something along the lines of a Deep Down, only.
Yeah, Deep Down is definitely westernized.
Oh, it was Let It Die.
Yeah.
It's because it's an RPG because over the heads of the monsters they had levels and you saw experience points and things like that. So at the very least, Suda 51's going kind of like Destiny, kind of got that RPG hook into it. But every time someone's going to mention that game, I'm going to get depressed because they canceled that game. Well, they took all the assets and they said that's never going to happen. We just took what we had and moved it into Let It Die, and it's generic.
I read that and I was like, well, maybe they just weren't happy with the sales of some of their other stuff that looks similar.
The best-selling game, the Lollipop Chainsaw.
Oh yeah, Lollipop. What is their most
Lollipop Chainsaw?
It is
Lollipop. It did better than No More Heroes. Lollipop Chainsaw did pretty damn well.
Maybe they thought that this art style can't appeal to anybody but Japan, but I don't know. When companies think that way, I think they kind of paint themselves into a corner.
Yeah, it's they're going way too they forget where they came from, and they're trying to. It's the same reason why you've seen so many of these developers leave the companies like Konami and Capcom. It's they say, hey, we want to make this game, and then people are no, you have to make this game. They force that. The execs are no, we know the market, they want this, they only buy this stuff. I guess you can kind of say that about the Moe market too, in a way, but that's just how they move them away. And then you have Shinji Mikami and those types of people getting off on their own, and that's. And I'm all for that. If they're going to be releasing smaller titles, people that are in a small group, they can make some pretty amazing things. And so, even was it in Final Fantasy, Square Enix, they were talking about, we made some of our best content when we had a small budget and we were, backed into a corner, and some of our best stuff came from that. And it's hey, why?
Yeah, when they said that, I was just
I don't remember them saying that.
He totally did, yeah.
Yeah, there's an interview, I think, with Kitase where he was talking about how, for example, with Final Fantasy VI, they had to work within their limitations, and because of that, they were able to make something that was super great, but not, it didn't rely on, style over substance, which is a huge problem with a lot of their more recent games.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing is that you would think that they'll kind of be more self-inflicted, they're just trying to understand that people, but it doesn't help when you have these fans begging them for HD ports and remakes and things like that. It's like, hey, guys.
Yeah,
those are
I really
nice.
wish people would stop begging for a Final Fantasy VII remake because it's probably never going to live up to their expectations anyway.
I just now remember that they even announced the Type 0 port. Like, that's actually happening.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that whole thing is still kind of dumb.
It's dumb, and, like, just how people are reacting to that news. It's just... that's how I'm, like... just HD ports in a whole. It's like, they're kind of neat, but I don't really want to... I don't really
Well, it's just kind of an awkward situation. It's a game that people were looking forward to, years ago, and then, like... right around the time when, there's a fan translation coming out and, people who are still interested are going to get a chance to play it in English somehow, then they announce, like, we're going to be porting it to PS4. So it's like PlayStation Portable to PS4, and now we're basically playing the waiting game again, where it's like, okay, when is this going to come out? Like...
And it's like the people that I'm interested. It's like, for me personally, it feels like Square Enix is becoming more and more like Activision. Like when you go to when I went to E3, it's like they had like 2 or 3 big games, and that was about it. And like you kind of think about, what if they do, like, say Ubisoft or something like that? They make Ubisoft is gigantic, but Square Enix is a pretty big company too. Like, they have thousands of employees. Like, what if they just, broke them off in, like, these small groups and things like that? Even Nippon Ichi is going out and saying, well, we make these big projects, but it's kind of nice to have these other people make these smaller ones, like Firefly Diary, which was announced. That's like a small team of people making that game, and it's been very well received in Japan because it's very artistic, it's very different, and it's fun. So, like, just thinking about going back to the PlayStation days where it wasn't like every single group was like a team of like 400, 600 people with a budget that's hundreds of millions of dollars. It's like, you'd hope that the success of Final Fantasy XIV would encourage them, but...
Yeah, I mean, you would think so, but I think their mismanagement problems continue, and nobody has really fixed it. Like, they keep claiming they're going to fix so many different things, and they just haven't. I mean, the Type 0 thing is kind of a mess in that basically if you want to play the game now, you either have to have a PS4 already, or you're going to have to go out and spend $400 to play what is effectively a PSP HD remaster.
Play on a PS4 and do the remote play and just pretend that it was always on the Vita.
Well, I mean, even then, it's still a pretty dumb situation, considering it's not even, like, what they should do is release the original version as well, but,
you think that, like, well, who knows? They could just straight up say later, like, Sony can, or maybe with some Sony backing or something like that, it's like, hey guys, we're going to bring it to the Vita as well. It's just, here you go. And do you think they would ever do that, or are they going to stick to their guns?
I don't know. I mean, they had Final Fantasy X ported to Vita. I mean, that was, I don't know who actually did that job. But that took a while last time. But that was also announced for that initially, so who knows.
Yeah, I mean, the Final Fantasy X actually did really well on the Vita, too. Like, it outsold the Xbox 360 version of Lightning Returns in the U.S., which is pretty hilarious. So.
Yeah. And that's obviously thinking about the size of those two audiences in the U.S.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So for them to say, well, Type 0 isn't going to be on Vita, even though the audience is already there and they've proven themselves, is kind of a slap in the face. So I can understand why people were upset about it.
Yeah, obviously, though, it's like the PS4 and Xbox One are kind of close together in terms of, the hardware inside of it, with, some obvious differences in there, too. But it's like going from that to Vita.
It's still a PSP HD remaster. It's not
who knows what that's... It's like... hopefully they don't charge like a crazy amount.
Like while there might be a notable difference between like Kingdom Hearts 3 when it comes out, like between the two platforms, for Type 0's remaster, it's going to be.
Well, I mean, the Type 0 HD remaster could probably run on a PS3. In all honesty.
Probably.
they haven't shown anything like that. How long is that going to? They
haven't shown anything, which is super suspicious to me. Because every time they've done this sort of thing in the past, where they announce something and they don't show anything, you're kind of like
2 years.
Yep, that was what happened with Final Fantasy X. Yeah.
Yep.
And then 3 years later, they're like, oh, hey, we're finally releasing this. It took longer to make than the actual original game, but here you guys go.
And there's complete press blackout between then and then. So
yeah, they've been pretty bad about that lately too.
And
this Gamescom's now look much better. Well, let's kind of move on then a little bit. And so, like, as we were talking about before, this month has been kind of focused on the backlog. But Adam, you were playing some Persona.
Yeah, so this is something I kind of wanted to do for a while, but like I have the original Persona 1, Persona 2, Persona 2 Innocent Sin, and Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. I have them on my Vita, and I finally got around to playing those. I've been meaning to do it for a while, so that was kind of like while they're in this lull of summer. Without any new releases, I wanted to tackle those, and I'm really kind of glad I did. They're, everyone here is familiar with the franchise in general, right?
Yeah,
of course.
Okay.
Straight up post-apocalyptic. Apocalyptic. Yes. Let's go.
Epilepsy.
Well, I guess some of the art Persona 4 might be epileptic. Anyways, so yeah, the earlier games are much more aligned with like the Shin Megami Tensei series they broke off of. The Persona series broke off of. Like first of all, there are no social links at all in Persona 1 or Persona 2.
Yeah, that's right. It's totally different.
Yeah, so like, in Persona 3 and 4, those titles are clearly more popular now, at least with gamers, now. But most of the time, you're actually either talking to like the other characters in terms of almost like a visual novel, like it's a story that's that's playing out, and you're just kind of listening to it, the dialogue between characters and all of that. And then you go to the dungeons in between, story elements, and they're randomized, and you're just kind of going through floors of some randomized dungeon. And that's kind of the structure of those games, really. You're going from, like, dungeon to, like, a large story section to dungeon. Whereas Persona 1 and 2, there are no social links. There aren't these, like, sections where you're just, listening to dialogue, like a visual novel.
Because they didn't have much writing back then. It was straight up like, go through this school.
It's literally what the structure is. It's more typical in that sense. Like, you're going through some sort of dungeon explorable area where there's monsters you encounter, and then there might be a scene, partway through. There might be a scene near the boss fight or after a boss encounter, and then you kind of explore the city, kind of like the newer Persona games afterwards, to do different tasks and things. But the main thing is these social links aren't there. And to be honest, I kind of actually prefer that personally. So the pacing feels a little bit better that way. However, the characters...
the immediacy would probably be better to describe it like, hey, I got to save the world. What am I trying to get this person to be my girlfriend?
Yeah, that's also true. And like any scene in these earlier games, they're totally pertinent to the narrative that's happening. Whereas there's a lot of like stuff in the later games that kind of amounts to filler, where it's more just character interaction, which I know a lot of people really love that. Where just the interaction between characters and they're having their personalities develop, but a little less of a focus in the earlier games, which I prefer, I think, but not. I can definitely see why there's. In the end, it's a big difference between Persona 2 and Persona 3. That's kind of where that jump took place. But also, like, some other key differences in terms of, like, battle mechanics. You can create personas, a variety of personas for each character, rather than just your main character. Like in Persona 3 and 4, you have basically only control over what your main character, is attached to. And the others are just kind of preset, and you really can't do anything with them. So that's a big difference, is that you have total control over that. So in terms of variety, I think that's an improvement. And also the dungeons are not randomized. It's an honest to goodness, area with a map that you can explore, and there's items to find and all these things. So it's not just randomized dungeons with randomized chests and loot. So I think that's also a big advantage to these earlier games. However, the battle system is a lot slower. It's not like the press turn or the once more system. It's
straight up first person, right?
No, actually.
I'm probably misremembering it then.
Yeah, the Persona 1 was the only first person one in terms of exploration. In terms of exploration, though.
Yeah.
Where you're going, that's like old school Shin Megami Tensei, where you're you see first person, you're kind of moving along a grid. But they removed that out of 2 and 3, and those actually are isometric, kind of like Persona 3 and 4.
That's right. Yeah.
But the battle system, it's really weird. Like I'm currently in the middle of Eternal Punishment right now, which is the second Persona 2 game. And instead of just like picking your actions before your turn, which is like typical, that's like every turn-based game, what you do is you kind of select the moves that each character is going to do, and then you basically press a go button, and basically the characters are just going to keep doing those moves over and over and over again until you basically pause and reselect their actions to do different things, and then you press go again.
Crazy auto battle.
Yeah, it's kind of like auto battle all the time, and it's odd. And it requires a lot of menu manipulation, going through menus to set all these. Whereas in Persona 3 or in most other turn-based games, it's a person's turn, you pick what they do and they do it. So that actually ends up being a lot faster, really. So.
Yeah, that does seem kind of fast, though, just making them do it, because the only time you're really going to be focusing on that is a boss battle.
Well, even then, if you need a character to heal, you can't just have that character heal. You have to literally pause everything, go into the menus where the action menu, and find that character in the list and tell them to heal. And then go back
healing every single turn.
And then you have to go back to the auto battle, and then when their turn comes up, they'll heal, and then you have to pause again to get them to not heal the next time around. So it's a really awkward setup, and I don't like it that much.
That's the thing, is going back to the old Final Fantasy games. It's really hard to go back because they were so rough, and so they didn't do much to the remake, if I remember correctly. They just made it more fit for the PSP. I think they just used the old script and stuff like that. But yeah, those old games.
Well, I mean, it's not even the fact that it's old. I think it's just the design of how they did this turn-based system is awkward and weird, and I don't really see the merit to it. It definitely took a while to get used to, and actually, I don't even know if I'm really still used to it.
No, I don't think you get used to that. So you just moved on to Persona 2. So did you already beat Innocent Sin then?
Yeah, I beat in terms of story, Persona 1, 2, and 3 is actually kind of interesting. They all link together in a way. Well, Persona 1 has a pretty basic story with some pretty basic characters. It's kind of like Shin Megami Tensei in that way, where it's not like SMT4, but like the earlier games where it's more subdued, pretty bare bones. But there is a story there. And then, without getting into too many spoilers, spoilers for these old games, Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment kind of take place in different realities at the same time. And so it's kind of weird how they intertwine that way. And then, in terms of a plot twist that kind of actually excited me was in Persona 2 Eternal Punishment, which is the second one, having a returning character from Persona 1 join your party, which that didn't happen in Innocent Sin. You play through Innocent Sin and nothing like that happens, and then now we're 2 games removed, and this character 2 games earlier now joins up again to kind of tie that narrative back into it. It's really kind of interesting in that way. So I'm not through it yet, and I don't want to say too many specifics, but it's really interesting. A lot of people praise its Eternal Punishment because of its narrative, and it's easy to see why. Another thing is all the characters are adults. There are no high school characters, which is atypical for the series.
So, I mean, wasn't Persona 3 and 4 just a bunch of teenagers too?
Persona 3 was more. Persona 1, high school cast. Persona 2, Innocent Sin, high school cast. Persona 3, high school cast. Persona 4, high school cast. Persona 2, Eternal
Punishment.
The
term atypical threw me through a loop. I don't know why.
Persona 2, Eternal Punishment, no high school characters. They're all adults, and it's kind of refreshing in that way, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and back then, I mean, all we got was Eternal Punishment. We didn't get Innocent Sin. So being able to play through both those versions, I mean, people never experienced that before until they got remade and ported to the PSP and brought over here. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and especially considering, Eternal Punishment is kind of the sequel. It's, like I said, they kind of happen at the same time, so that's why people use sequel loosely here. But it's kind of weird that one was localized first, several years ago, and not Innocent Sin. So.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. That's kind of hard. I don't know. I mean, like, what would have been the thought process of that? Because I think Innocent Sin obviously came out first in Japan, so I don't know if it's that they thought that Eternal Punishment had a better story or something. That's weird.
Yeah, so, I'm almost finished with Eternal Punishment, and who knows, I might write something up for the site on it, on those earlier games, but it's definitely very different, but there's several aspects, like I mentioned, the dungeons, how the personas are used, and even some story elements that I think, it's a nice change of pace from what Persona 3 and 4 are now, although the gameplay just kind of the battle system takes a little bit of, you kind of have to set your mind back, back to that time. With this, just kind of get this little bit more clunky battle system there. So
yeah, that's why clearly Persona 4 became such a big hit. It's because it's the best version of that series. At least I guess you could make the argument.
Persona 4, what it does really well is its characters. Even at this point, I'd say Persona 4, in terms of the depth to each of the characters, it's unmatched. And, I mean, just the style of the game lends itself to that, that's the social links, that's what they do, is they build these characters. So, I mean, some people, it's got that high school setting. I know some people criticize it because it's kind of got that Scooby-Doo feel with the mystery elements to it.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, but it really does a good job in establishing characters, so it's easy to see why it's loved for that.
Yeah, so... Yeah, and I plan to get into those games very soon, too. I own all of them. I want to get back to them, do the same thing you've been doing. So, yeah, that's, we still got Persona games to come, so it's kind of interesting what they do. It's kind of, not to dwell on it, I just want to make a point that I wish they kind of talked about Persona 1 and 2 in these recent games, because they don't even touch on them at all.
It is kind of funny how Persona 1, 2, and 2, they all the characters in those, that is the same world with the same locations and the same, buildings and everything. And then I guess when they went to Persona 3, that was just all dropped.
It's really unfortunate because those Hitler.
It's still the same world, though, isn't it? All four games, it's still the same universe because of what's his name?
Yeah. Well,
because
Filemon?
No,
the butterfly
Igor.
guy. Well, Igor, yeah. I don't know how to pronounce these names, but in the earlier Persona games, the guy who gives you Persona powers is named Filemon, kind of like a Digimon name there. His little symbol is like a butterfly. He turns to this butterfly, and Igor is more of his assistant.
That's what you see out, and when you have to,
and then when you go to
the butterfly,
the butterfly is a safe spot, and also in the Velvet Room in 3 or 4, there's a butterfly hanging around. So obviously it's kind of a callback, I think.
I'm over here.
But when in Persona 4, Persona 3, you actually go back to that location for a moment, and so those are kind of in the same universe, just a couple of years apart. And Persona 2 and 1 are kind of similar, just in terms of that overall narrative. It's kind of a breaking point in between 2 and 3 for some reason. Who knows?
Yeah, I wish they kind of talked about it a little bit. I mean, it's like Persona 3 already. It feels like they're slowly getting away from Persona 3. Even it's like,
well,
come on, guys.
I don't know what you mean by that. They have this Persona Q, which has all a lot of the Persona 3 characters.
I just mean as far as like when Persona 5 comes out, just because Persona 3 kind of fits into the old style too much, I can easily see them starting to slowly drop even that away, even from like even if they are in the arena games and stuff like that. Like I can see them kind of slowly moving away from those even and start to embrace, because 4 is just such a juggernaut. It's I don't know. It's. I mean, the fact that they're not even.
The game came out 6 years ago, and now they're still making like spin-offs of it. There's Persona Q, and then there's a Hatsune Miku style dancing singing game.
Dance All Night.
Yeah, and so
I'm gonna play that.
So I'd have to guess that Persona 5. I don't know. Do you think they're gonna like tie into Persona 4 at all?
They're going to tie into Persona 1. It's going to be all looped back around, and then it's going to be all about, emancipation, and then you bounce back to, kids in high school being locked up.
That's basically all we know about Persona 5 right now.
Yeah, it's that they got the handcuffs like to the ball and chain on the chairs for some reason. School's prison, school's a jail.
Are we expecting a TGS announcement for that, or is that more going to be like a Famitsu thing?
They'll probably do their own thing like they did last time, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so, David, I know you were telling us before we started this that you weren't really playing that much, but you kind of delved a little bit into 10-2, just a bit?
Yeah, just a bit.
Did you play that game before?
Yeah, I 100%ed it back in 2000, whatever.
Got all the Just Spheres and everything?
Oh, yeah. But now...
Man, dedication. I heard some of those are tough.
I'm seeing that monster capturing stuff, and I'm just like, what the hell is this? I don't want to do this.
How difficult was it to get the 100% in that game before?
Oh, back...
Because the thing in 10, I know it's some people are upset, you do everything and then there'll be 0.2% left, and you're like,
Well, yeah, basically Final Fantasy X-2, to get the 100% completion, where certain story elements give you percentage, you pretty much have to follow a guide.
Yeah, you can't miss anything.
And even then...
Did you follow a guide, David? Did you buy the strategy guide at the time?
Oh, God, I don't remember. I mean, GameFAQs existed back then.
Yeah, at that time, I didn't, we had the internet, but mostly it was me printing off pages of stuff. Like when Final Fantasy XI came out, I was just printing off pages. I mean,
what I remember is I just got the normal ending back for the first time I played it back then, and then the second time I played it, I just 100%ed it.
Oh man!
And it took
Did you love it that much? Was 10-2 that good to you?
I guess so. I mean, I also this was back when I 100%ed a lot of things.
Oh, it was your thing you did?
Yeah, I mean, I was in high school. Now I got 800 games to play. It's tougher to go completionist on it and stuff. But yeah,
I was never like that. Yeah, I could never complete a game. I beat it and that's it. But the idea of getting 100% in Final Fantasy X-2 and all that stuff, man. That just seems kind of crazy to me.
I mean, hey, I've spent 100 hours on single stuff before, so might as well if I like it enough.
So how far have you played in 10-2 then?
For the HD remaster?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, I know you 100% the first one. The remaster.
Oh, no, I haven't 100%ed the remaster.
No, yeah. So you said only in the first chapter or something like that.
Yeah, I'm still in the first chapter or something.
So not big on RPGs this past month. You weren't really playing that too much.
Yeah, I was playing adventure games and the other random stuff.
Mario Kart.
What adventure games were you playing?
As I was telling you before we started the stream, I was playing the Cat Lady, which is that depression game.
Can you give him a bigger description? You only called it the depression game so far. What exactly is it?
First of all, it has this really unique art style. It's I have no idea how to explain it. It's first of all, you're on a 2D plane.
I gotta look this up.
But it's 3D-ish, painting kind of stuff. I really have no idea how to explain it. But anyway, so the premise is you're this not crazy. You're this depressed 40-year-old woman. The game opens up with her killing herself. So, yeah, already starting out depressing. you find her in, like, something that might be hell, and you find this woman that's, like, looks like she's a skeleton.
I'm looking at pictures. I'm seeing, like, someone covered, like, in a butcher's outfit, covered in blood.
This sounds like a very positive game.
A gas mask. What the heck?
Oh, yeah. So this woman that you see in what may or may not be hell gives you this mission to, like, kill, like, 5 people back in the living world that are parasites, as she calls them. And they're like bad people. Like one is like a psychologist that just kidnaps his victims, and they're like serial killers and stuff like that.
So it's killing actual bad people though. So it's kind of like justice in a way.
Yeah, but it's really depressing. Like the way she gets, like she needs to give up some blood to get back to the living world, so she like has to cut her arm off and. And once that happens, like this rock music plays and the title screen comes on, it's just really bizarre.
That's what made you? What led you to play this game? I want to know this.
Like, how did you hear of this and like decide I want to play that?
Well, this was during the Steam sale, but I actually got it on GOG. Yeah, so I was just like, I was just keeping an eye on what was going on sale, and I saw it on one of the. Like things that happens every 20 minutes on the Geo.
Oh yeah, they were doing the whole they do like a flash sale where they would have a deep discount on one game.
Yeah, and it was like, I think it might have been like 99 cents. I clicked on it. I was like, this seems kind of interesting. So I looked up some reviews, and it was actually pretty well received. So I'm like, yeah, might as well take a chance. And I ended up liking it a pretty good amount.
So to be honest, it sounds like a game I'd probably check it out too, just because I'm more into kind of those weird, twisted kind of. Because I'm also a big survival horror fan, so like the Silent Hill series are big.
Oh yeah, it's not really like
not survival horror, but it's more like adventure type of like point and click.
It's interesting because I wouldn't really call it scary, but it is it's incredibly creepy at points.
Is it like torture porn scary, or is it just straight up like shock and scare?
Yes and no, because what scared me is like it has a fantastic soundtrack, first of all, but like the sound design is just like in certain points it's like I can't remember. There's like an instrument that just really creeps me out, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a mix of a bang and like the thing where you're like rubbing your fingers across it. Oh God, I don't know what it's called, and I'm describing it horribly.
A cello or no?
No, it's not.
A bane and
it's like a really obscure string instrument. You know what? It doesn't matter. But yeah, it's a pretty cool game, and I'm surprised not many people have heard of it because it's pretty damn well done. Actually, no, I'm not surprised not many people heard of it because it's a really obscure game. But yeah, and it's.
I can check it out myself just because I'm kind of into that. Sounds as weird as it sounds. Like I can't. Some stories I need a little bit of that, depression or sadness or something like that.
Sometimes you're just in the mood to be moody or whatever. Just to jump into that and be like, I don't know, kind of soak that in. Weird atmosphere.
At the very least, it's unique. I can't think of any other games where I played as a 40-year-old suicidal woman. So yeah,
that's true. It kind of reminds me of this game called like Edna and Harvey, like Harvey's New Eyes that I played. It has like on the surface it seems like a kind of children's book kind of style, where it's like they all go to this orphanage.
What game?
But always good things happen in an orphanage. It's Harvey's New Eyes.
Harvey's New Eyes?
Yeah, it's Edna and Harvey. So everything kind of starts off pretty.
Is this a PC
normal
game or?
Yeah. It's a PC game. You can get it like on Steam.
Cool.
I think it's like $4 or $5. I think you can get it pretty cheap. Like it on the surface, it seems kind of like for kids, and then you slowly realize that things aren't the way it appears to be, and all you hear is like this narrator kind of talking things along. Like she goes down to like this well and like needs to get the stain out of the bottom of the bucket.
Oh, this is nice.
There's this guy you can get him to the it's like you need to get some bottom here. It's like Timmy, he fell down the well. It's not Timmy, but this guy fell down the well. But we need to get the water flowing really well. So all you see is just this weird sequence of events that just becomes really dark and demented. It's really, and all she like and Harvey, all she sees is just like everything seems to be like all cute and fluffy. Like instead of seeing blood, all she sees is like Jello and goo and stuff like that. Like, and then the game makes it look like it's just
thing.
Exactly. Like she thinks it's like all nice and children's like a children's TV show kind of thing, but it's really in fact all these horrific things happening around her. So yeah, that
sounds awesome.
It's if you like the cat lady, check out Harvey's New Eyes. It's like I think it's like $4. You can pick it up, but it's
by Daedalic.
Yeah, the Adventure Game Masters. I'd highly recommend it just because it's so different, and so I think and the stories it can hook you in. It's a point and click adventure game too, though, so it's got a lot of the stuff where you have to search around the screen and then find different items and use them, click them, drag them, all that.
I actually haven't really played all that many adventure games. I played some of the earlier like King's Quest on DOS, but none of these new ones.
They got the new King's Quest games though too. So
wait, there's new ones? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's not the people that made like a fan version of the game. They basically let them have the ability to continue to make those. The King's Quest 6, I think it is what they made. And they have been making more of those. I think it's like Phoenix Online or something like that, the name of the developer. So they are making those. I heard they've been been a little bit mixed, at least the early ones. So let's see how those go. Anyway, moving on from adventure games though, and so Liz, of course, you not only are you currently reviewing a game, but you're also delving a little bit into the backlog, but Let's kind of go through one of the new ones because we've been talking about old games all the time, but you've been reviewing Disgaea 4 for the Vita.
Yes, I have.
Is this your first time playing Disgaea 4?
Yeah, it is my first time with Disgaea 4. And actually, since Disgaea D2, I hadn't played an original or a Disgaea game since the original, so I'm still trying to get back into the series and all of its new mechanics and whatnot. And I haven't gotten very far in the Disgaea 4 Vita yet. I'm only in episode 2, but I really like what they do with the geo blocks and all that, and how you learn new skills. I find it like kind of a nice change of pace from D2, because I feel like I don't need to grind certain things as much as I had to with D2, like weapon levels and whatnot.
Yeah, like Disgaea 4, it's known because they used a different director for that game compared to the first 3 titles, and so they just completely jumped into a new style.
Now, these games are they're not, besides D2, like 1, 2, 3, and 4 are unrelated in terms of you don't need to play...
D2 is a sequel to 1, yeah.
Well, I don't need to play Disgaea 3 to understand Disgaea 4, right?
No. They're like they're really Final Fantasy games. They're completely...
Yeah, I understand there might be series references or,
There are, returning characters, but it's you can pick it up pretty quickly who they are, so
okay.
That's about it. But they're not core to the story. I mean, you enjoy it more if you know them. I should say
that's kind of true with every series,
Yeah. But the first Disgaea, you can get them for probably $5 on PSN. So it's try those out. But yeah, Disgaea 4 completely different. So you're in episode 2 so far. Like you said, the geo blocks I can never figure out.
Okay, what are these? As someone I never played the series, what's a geo block?
Well, in most of the Disgaea games, you have these geo panels that are thrown about the field. They give different random effects to enemies or allies, and they also have these little geo cube things. I can't remember what they're called, that you can destroy and have various effects on the field. But geo blocks are an evolution of that. They're on the field and you can destroy them, but they don't have effects on the squares themselves that you walk around on. This is probably a really bad explanation, but...
Well, no, that makes sense. I mean...
The geopanels are based the tiles themselves that you walk on are different colors.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So, for example, you have, this entire... say, for example, a fourth of the entire field is red, and so if you stand inside this field, the enemy is invincible. You cannot attack them. So what you have to do is figure out a way to either lure them out or just straight up pick them up. You can literally pick up these monsters and chuck them into a spot that doesn't have them. So
Right.
Well, from what I understood, like, in a lot of SRPGs, you have your characters and they're on a map, but, your characters are more just, interacting with the enemy characters, in terms of positioning and, depleting their HP. But in Disgaea, there's a little bit of this element where you actually have to, like, manipulate the battlefield with these geoblocks.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a little bit different,
Yeah, it's not Final Fantasy Tactics. You can tell a lot of it's it's its own thing, really.
Well, I mean, like, terrain is always important, but actually like manipulating the field.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
the
the panels. Yeah, the geo stuff is the geo blocks themselves. I think Disgaea 4 probably does the best job in making it easy for people, as accessible to that kind of stuff. Just because the geo blocks easier, where it's like. You just have to kind of destroy them, and that's it.
Yeah, instead of doing the terrain itself.
Yeah.
And Disgaea is kind of, like, known for, like, can't think of a better way to put it, like, fourth wall breaking, right? Like, they'll refer to, like, the final boss.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah.
Or things like that.
Straight up the mid-boss, yeah. Straight up fourth wall breaking all over the place. Yeah. That's part of his charm, for sure.
Right.
And the humor is it's got some of the best humor.
Yeah, that's what I hear. So it's one of those series I've never tried, but eventually I'll get into it.
Yeah. So, and, the cool thing is just Disgaea 4, aside from, the gameplay, which is, it's very, if you play the other Disgaea games, it's very much that. It's the characters themselves. That's a big draw.
Yeah, I do find the characters pretty interesting, like, well, instead of just having demons, we have vampires and werewolves running around that we usually don't see, and the main character is pretty interesting thus far. I mean, I haven't gotten too far into him, but he likes to talk about sardines. What can I not like about that?
And it's the voice of Troy Baker of talking about sardines and giving you a full-on education about the history of sardines, because of course he finds them the most nutritious thing on the planet, in the world. That anyone can experience. So, and the whole story is basically about how he is teaching these prinnies, which are of course the mascots of the Disgaea series, and Nisam and Nippon-Ichi America's mascot as well. But the school of prinnies, he's the teacher, and apparently it's like, man, it's been a little bit. So the story, what's the story set up on that? It's
the president of the Corruptiment is trying to get rid of all the prinnies because they're overflowing the netherworld. And then, so Valvatore is like, hey, I made a promise to these prinnies that I was going to give them a sardine, so you can't do that. And he decided to overthrow the Corruptiment over all this.
And, the whole point of the prinnies is that they're supposed to be serving, like, this sentence where they have to kind of serve however long they need to, like years to tens of thousands of years to millions of years to basically pay back their debts to society. So and then
it kind of sounds like it's like the narrative is like over the top, but like kind of weirdly juxtaposed with like how like a serious.
It is there's some serious,
like a silly subject, only with like a serious like tonality, I guess at times. I don't know.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So all the Disgaea games, every single one of them has got a strong hint of drama to it as well, and some serious stuff about it too. In Disgaea 4 too, because there's a lot of flashbacks in Disgaea 4 because they talk about the main character and what happened before and what led it to this point. So
one thing I'm just curious about. How long is like a typical battle? I know like some SRPGs, just one battle might take, 30 minutes or something.
It varies.
Okay.
Your typical skirmish, 10, 15 minutes. Not that long.
Okay.
And it's on the Vita.
When you get into post game stuff, and it could be like an hour.
Yeah, it's the number of enemies and how difficult it can be. But if you've been spending your time leveling up your characters, that game is so over the top that I was blasting through enemies towards the end of the game pretty quickly. So.
I understand that these games are like chock full of everything.
Well, the cool thing is, I don't know if Liz, if you've gotten into it all, but that cheat shop from Disgaea D2 makes an appearance in Disgaea for Vita.
Yeah.
And so you can totally break the game
You really can. I just unlocked it, so I can't do much with it yet, but it's a big advantage for leveling and all that.
It's like in-game like cheats.
Exactly. It's pretty much it. Like, for example, one thing you can do is increase the difficulty of the enemies, and so that way you can get experience points faster. And so one thing that I did in Disgaea D2 is that there was one map where it's a very small map, and there's like these 3 monsters at one end and you on the other. And you can what you can do is that you can run up and stack yourself on top of another character, and it's straight up like a ladder, so they're holding each other, like one's boosting one up by the feet and the other one up on top of the other. And by stacking them on top of each other, that also adds their levels together as well. And so like you go from level like 10 to like 20, and then you like all the way up until like you have like 8 or 9 characters. So you can be like level 100, but then the higher the level, the bigger the multiplier is. And so like you got like this stack of characters that are level like say 400 against these monsters that have the difficulty raised up, but still not strong enough to completely decimate you. And by attacking with this stack, every single person gets experience points from that. And so, like, you can imagine how easy it is to break that game.
Well, I've seen some, I don't really have much familiarity with the series, but I know people pointed it out when they're talking about, like, crazy numbers. Like, Disgaea is a game of crazy numbers, or at least it can be.
That's all their games, really.
Yeah.
That's how the series has been. And so, so that cheat shop, for people who are hesitant to get into Disgaea, that cheat shop makes things a lot more manageable. And it does other things too. Like, what else besides, I mean, the main purpose I used it for was just the levels, but it's also like, I saw you can just do like, pointless things, like changing armor appearance or weapon appearance and just customizing, and, it doesn't actually affect the game, but just for fun. So yeah, and you can also turn off things like you can't throw somebody. Like you can straight up like turn off features of the game if you wanted to, and I'm just like, why would you do this? I guess it's there. But
I guess it's fun for if you like to just experiment or whatever.
Yeah. But that's the thing where like it wasn't until Disgaea D2 where I saw people leveling their characters to 9,999. It's like, how in the world could you do this? And then it's like, oh, you've been doing this. You've been stacking your characters. So, but Disgaea for Vita, it's how does it feel playing that on handheld?
I mean, it's really good to play. I feel it's always good to play strategy RPGs and stuff on the handheld because you can pretty much stop at any time, or if you're grinding, you can get on the like TV or whatever. So I do like it more than how I played Disgaea D2 on the PS3 because I had to give it my full attention more or less. And you couldn't like have like laid on a couch or something and had something going on the TV while playing or something. You're right.
Unlike Tokiden or those action RPG Vita games, this is turn-based, so easy to just put it in sleep while you're even in the middle of a turn or whatever, or if you get distracted by something,
like straight up Monster Hunter, you can't pause the game.
Well, right.
So that's a big part of that. Yeah, that's what Tokiden was too. You couldn't pause it. So
I just for SRPG, I definitely think that on a handheld works really well because it's whether it's in between battles or even during a battle, it's easy just to stop momentarily or whatever.
Right.
That pick up and go nature of it. So I think it works. And all the Disgaea games have a portable version, right?
Yeah.
Like whether it's PSP or Vita, or I guess obviously P2 doesn't.
Well, but that's obviously brand new. But all the other ones do now. So
because it's either like Disgaea 1 and 2 are on PSP, and then 3 and 4 on Vita. Okay. Yeah,
and I think they're all on PSN too.
Yeah.
I think Disgaea 1 and 2 and PSP are both on PSN now. I think
they are.
Yeah, I think they are now. I think I remember someone telling me that when I thought they weren't. Yeah, I think it's because when I mentioned.
I think I know they're on there because I want to kind of try them eventually. Like, oh, okay, I can get them off PSN whenever I
Afternoon of Darkness.
Decide to.
Yeah. So definitely. I mean, I don't. I assume the PSP versions are better, just because like any next version of a game, it's better quality. But that's we'll have a review up soon, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Liz?
Yes.
Have you looked at any of the DLC?
I have not. I thought Disgaea 4 Vita came with all the DLC from the PS3 version, but is there going to be more DLC for the Vita version?
It's a lot of like anime characters and stuff like that, like Horo from Spice and Wolf and stuff like that. They basically said all the DLC that was out in Japan is going to come here pretty much, and so it's more like characters and things like that. Like unless you're into that kind of stuff, it's
kind of like just like cameos and fan service type ones. So different brands and whatnot.
So yeah, we'll kind of look at that though. I mean, I don't know. Disgaea games take a while. I mean, they are like I think Disgaea 4 is like 25 hours or something like that.
Yeah,
so,
but looking at the post game, it could take hundreds of hours. But you know,
that's
if you're crazy.
We'll see you back next year, Liz, when you review that game. You stuck into that. Yeah, I mean, for me, myself, I mean, so.
Yeah, what have you been playing?
Yeah, you know, I played a little Fire Emblem for the first time.
Awakening?
And, yeah, Awakening. I won't talk about that much because we've spoken about that so many times. But for me, it's more, I could see this being the natural evolution for how Valkyria Chronicles could be. Like, there's already so many ways in that series where they build relationships between the characters, like just straight up perks, where if you're nearby somebody, you benefit from like having better senses or like protecting that person. So like the relationship, the dating sim part of that, I could easily see that going into there. So if they make another Valkyria Chronicles, I'm sure they will. That kind of stuff. It felt like that's what I would want from that. And so, and this is actually my first Fire Emblem game. I've never played the series before. And I've gotten a pretty good experience from that. I made the unfortunate mistake of I was like, I'll just play it as a female. And then I didn't realize until later, oh yeah, there's no lesbians or anything. There's no gay or lesbian activity in that at all. It's straight up you have to go for the opposite sex. I was like, oh, I guess I've been kind of hanging out with Crom a lot, so I guess I'll go with that guy. And it's not like I got into it straight up for that type of relationship. I just, I figured the main character didn't matter that much.
Well, Tharja would have loved you anyway, regardless of your gender.
Tharja, yeah, I'm sure. She doesn't care.
Some of the story scenes are quite different if you're a female because of the whole Crom Lucina thing.
Oh, I've gotten people saying like I was a weak person because I was a female. It's, straight up like those types of remarks.
Well, I actually just meant between some of the major characters. It changes if you're related to the Lucina character, if you're a little Avatar character, and all that. So.
Yeah. Well, and I haven't gotten to the point where it gets to developing relationships, getting to the point where you're making offspring and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, so, I thought you beat it.
No.
Okay.
I'm very far away from beating it. I stopped at that point a little bit and then started to, because there's so much anime, I can't keep up with that game.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I got into the 4-job festa for Final Fantasy V, which just means that you have to follow someone else's rules for which jobs you choose as you beat each tower.
I talked about Final Fantasy V. What was it, last time or the time before?
Yeah, I just really wanted to touch on that. I was playing that, so that's pretty much it for me. I've been kind of delving into my backlog too, but it's been kind of Dynasty Warriors 8 is all else I've been playing. So it's RPGs. August is going to be huge for what we got covered. So, Erren, have you just been kind of playing 14?
I bet she's playing 14 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, maybe.
Maybe? Just been playing while we've been talking?
Well, I've been listening to you guys, but, I mean, that's what 2 monitors are for, right?
Right.
Oh, you got 2 monitors. Oh, that's right. Jared told me you have 2 monitors, and so you guys have been kind of bouncing back and forth.
Yeah,
nice.
Yep. So, I'm kind of waiting, I don't know. We'll see. I wanted to play Watch Dogs,
oh, yeah.
But when it came out, it wouldn't run very well on computer. It wouldn't run very well on non-NVIDIA cards. So
that's right, because they had a deal with NVIDIA.
So, yeah, apparently there's patches out now, so I might try it. But, yeah, it's been mostly 14, because they released a new content patch. So I've just been messing around in that.
not to go into it too deep, but of course, I heard that game's been a bit of a letdown lately because they've been putting too much effort into the hunts.
Oh yeah. So basically, what happened is they said they were going to put in these mob hunts, and before they came out, people thought they would be similar to Final Fantasy XII. You know how in 12 people had, like, you'd go and you'd get the hunt, and then you'd have to initiate it and all that, and then go out and get it? Well, in reality, it's nothing like that. It's basically, they're out in the zones, and people just zerg from one to the next, and it's...
So you can kind of knock them down.
Is it just like straight up raids, just like how they always been? Like you just go out and they kind of appear, or like you have to initiate them?
No, they're just, like, out there. They spawn on timers or whatever, and people
just
can...
Okay.
So what I'm imagining is they have, like, people that memorize, the best paths and the best, to get for the respawns, and, you just kind of kill them over and over and over again type of thing? Or am I... That's how I'm understanding it.
It's the same stuff pretty much over and over again, but the main problem is... There was other content that was released during this patch, and nobody is doing this content because these hunts actually give out some of the best, like, they're the best way to get a lot of the rewards in the game. So
that's the most depressing part.
So people don't have any reason to do the other content because they can do this one thing where all they have to do is zerg a bunch of mobs, and then they get that content, which includes some of the stuff that was previously... and still is under a weekly lockout in the harder, like the highest tier raid in the game.
And they have parties with them, people that are willing to go out with them. A lot easier to do that, like they're willing to go out with them and do it, than finding a party that's like, you want to go out and do this hard quest that's going to be hard? Well, now you have like a mass amount of people that are like, we all benefit, I guess, from this.
Seems like just like a balance.
Yeah,
that's breaking the game.
It's pretty broken, and...
Yeah.
Like, they did actually add another raid dungeon. It's called Crystal Tower, which is based on the Final Fantasy III Crystal Tower. And
yeah, I remember that.
The thing is, not a lot of people are doing it because the stuff in there isn't as good as what you can get from just doing the hunts. And that is also a problem in itself. It's just, the hunts have created so much imbalance, I guess. And Square's it's been like 3 weeks since Square's hasn't said a word, and I think... they didn't realize that people were going to go for the path of least resistance to get stuff, and they happen to be through these hunts. And
people are going to have their fill a lot sooner if they continue down this road. They're like, well, I got all the best gear for now. I guess I'm done with this game. It's like, why would you continue down this? I would assume maybe they're trying to figure out ways to find like a substitute for that, like another way to do it without straight up nerfing it, but...
I don't know. They should have took action a lot sooner than they have, because right now it's like there's so much toxicity in the community now, and their silence is not helping one bit. Like, they had a lot of good things going with the game, but if they're gonna treat problems like they should just be ignored, then I think that's a serious problem.
Yeah. Then they'll go play Destiny instead, or something like that, if they're gonna be like that. Oh man. So Zach, it's kind of crazy how they would still look to that.
Yeah, I know, and like they recently
after all that success.
Yoshida, the producer-director, said something about how he still values progression and stuff, but basically with these hunts, people can go and get stuff that people are still under the lockout, and the raids can only get like one a week. So I mean, they're able to get like 3 or 4 in a week now, or even more, depending on how much they do the hunts, which is really unbalanced.
Man, what happened to 14? That's depressing.
Yeah, like I said, it wouldn't bother me so much if they would just come out and talk about it, but like
Square Enix being Square Enix lately, huh? They do their thing.
There's been so many complaints on their official forums about it, and I've even posted on there. I've posted my thoughts to some of the people I know who work at Square, and they just kind of they just don't say anything, and it's super frustrating because, like I said, they created something that just it's affecting all the other aspects of the game, and it's a problem when people are only doing that one thing to get the best reward when they're not really learning to play the best gear.
God, why would they even do that? Like, what led them to think that putting the best gear inside these raids where they just spawn out in the open and there's no like.
I could see them. I could see, them maybe putting some. There has to be some incentive to do these hunts, but not so much.
Well, the raids were straight up like you just get experience points and things like that. Like it's money and experience points. You would go out and do that stuff, but
it's just a question of balance that they didn't, approach well. It seems.
Well, originally, so when they first put in the hunts, the way they expected people to do it, so there's 3 different ranks. There's B, A, and S. And the B ranks were meant to be, like, for a single person to go out and find and kill. The A ranks were meant for, like, a party of 4, and the S ranks were meant for, like, multiple parties of 8. So what happened was, like, entire servers ended up going after every single tier. And they issued a tiny bandage patch where they just increased the HP of all the mobs, which honestly didn't do anything because...
No, you're already decimating them.
Right, so these mobs they basically die in seconds, and the whole server lags in and out because of people teleporting from everywhere just to kill this one mob. And because people are so busy doing these hunts because they offer so much reward, like, they offer other stuff too, some of the tokens that you need weekly that you can buy other gear with, which, you usually get that stuff in instances and things like that, but a lot of people aren't doing the instances now because they can go out and just zerg hunts all day. And as a result, like, dungeon queues and queues for other stuff have just, like, gotten super bad.
Every time I see someone on my Twitter playing Final Fantasy XIV, it's almost always talking about those hunts. They don't do much else now, it seems. I mean, sometimes you hear people doing, like, the turns and things like that, but nowadays it's either they're playing the hunt or they're
complaining about it.
Or they're complaining about the hunt raids. And that's obviously just having that be the conversation is totally derailing that game, It's
some people like the hunts, and that's okay.
I see that.
And the thing is, though, a lot of the people that I've seen say that they like it, they get super defensive, and they won't admit that, yes, they are unbalanced, and they need to be
balanced the shortcuts
because they're hurting all the other content in the game.
It's because they like it the easy way. They like the shortcuts in the game because it's like pretty much them power leveling in the game. It's
right.
an easy way for them to level up.
So I've seen people, like, I do the hard raids in the game, and I see people who've gotten more of the upgrade items that you could only previously get in these raids that, like, my entire group has gotten within the past 3 months, and it's kind of like, okay.
All that work, all that money I gave to Square Enix for naught, because now it seems like you're punishing those willing to go out and experience the stuff that you've spent a lot of time and effort creating.
Well, yeah, they spend a lot of time and effort making these instance contents and these different boss encounters. Like, this patch that just came out with the hunts also had a new battle with Ramuh, which is, like, one of the classic Final Fantasy summons, and nobody wants to do it because the quote-unquote rewards aren't as good as what they can get from hunts. And it's super sad because that fight's actually pretty cool.
And it's like at E3, it's like the Leviathan battle. That was nuts, just being able to try to keep on that damn boat all that time. But, like, just think about the fact that so many of these people are never going to touch that story. It's like they're barely going to experience almost all the story. It's like playing Call of Duty and only playing the multiplayer mode. That's all it felt like. That's how it seems like, because it's like, well, I get the best guns here. It's like, who needs to talk about the story and stuff? Who cares? I just want to level up. I want to get the equipment. I want to look cool.
Well, yeah, you get all that stuff, but then the problem, at least in 14, that will probably run into is people won't know how to actually play the game. you go out, you do the hunts, all you have to do is mash one button, where in the raids and dungeons, you actually have to know how to play your job.
And, like, mash the button, and then the screen locks up, and, like, well, I hope I got something out of that. If not, I'll wait a little bit until the respawn.
I mean, I tried them out just to see what they were like, and they really aren't that great, but people are still doing them. I thought it would kind of die down after a couple weeks, but no. People are still neglecting other content just to do the hunts.
So sad. You know, and you hope
that's definitely like considering Square Enix hasn't said anything. It's like,
Oh my gosh, it's so frustrating because on their forums they answer a lot of questions on like quality of life stuff for the game, and that's cool. But when so many people are complaining about, you know, broken game balance, and then you're not saying anything, that just represents a major issue to me. Like, you're basically just kind of spitting in the face of your customers. And one of the excuses that I did hear was that people complaining about it were a minority, but I really don't think that's the case.
I think it speaks to a much broader issue. It's like, even if it's not a lot of people like complaining about it, the fact that there's that core issue there where it's like, this is because so many people are benefiting from these rewards. It's like you're giving huge rewards to these people for very little effort. You're not going to see a lot of people saying like, "Well, no, you can't do that. Don't give me all this cool stuff." No,
exactly.
Of course they're not going to be out there.
The only reason people are like doing the hunts as much as they are is because they put those rewards in there. And I mean, those rewards were pretty hard to get. I mean, you would have to put in at least a couple weeks worth of learning a fight just to get them in the first place.
And based on the average age of the gamer who's in their 30s or something like that, who has a job that, you know, doesn't have a lot of time to play online games and stuff like that, to complain about that, they're going to say it's going to be a minority, but it's
well, it kind of goes into that mindset, you know, some people just want to, you know, fill bars in a sense, like they just want to get the equipment, they just want to, you know, get the best stuff possible, and they want to fill bars, the term I use for that, where, you know, some people are more interested in actually playing the game for the gameplay.
And I play it for the story, you know. I played even on the online games. I played for the story.
Yeah, it's funny because like I asked a couple of people who had gotten some of those upgrades, like, so are you gonna do raiding now? And they're like, no. And you don't really you don't need this high level gear to really do anything else in the game. So it's kind of like, well, then why did you need that?
Because they want to fill bars.
I want to brag to my friends that I got this cool stuff and show it off.
Pretty much. I don't know. It just kind of devalues the whole, like, why am I doing this high-end content, you know?
Yeah. It's a snowball thing where it's like, it doesn't seem like a big deal right off the bat, but, you know, more and more people are going to be like, well, I'm good. Well, yeah, I guess I can move on to the next big MMO that's going to come out, like Titan or something.
Well, yeah, something like that could definitely affect, like, just the game economy and all that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I already know a lot of people who do the harder content in the game who are just kind of, like, they log in, and because you can only do the high-end raid dungeon, like, you can only complete it once a week because of the lockout, because they don't want you to gear up, like, extremely fast, which is another reason why the hunts is just kind of like, what's going on here, you know? Because before they had set that precedent of, hey, we don't want people getting all this gear all at once, yet on the other hand, they just kind of did, well, leaving this other stuff locked off, and they're not talking about it, so, I don't know, they're really sending mixed messages.
Well, on that sad note, I hope they get that fixed. On that sad note, we're going to call it a podcast for this month. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Thanks a lot.
And you got a somber note here.
Very somber note. It's the thing.
Hopefully Square listens to this podcast and says,
well, they haven't even put out like their
first about this.
Yeah. Like, they haven't even gotten to like their expansion packs yet that they said they were going to make.
Well, they're going to talk about it in October, but I mean that's still quite a
It's
ways
after
off.
Destiny comes out. It's after, it's when other companies are talking about their next game. There's like free-to-play there's so many issues with that anyway. But let's not dwell on it too much just because just thinking about it hurts me. But thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining us this month, guys. Thank you very much to Adam, to David, to Liz, to Erren. Thanks a lot, guys, for being a part of the podcast.
You're very
appreciate
welcome.
your presence here.
You're welcome.
Yes. August is going to be a lot better for the site. We got some big stuff planned. I mean, there's a lot more games coming out. Tales of Exilia 2 comes out. The new Neptunia game comes out. There's going to be a lot more stuff to cover on the site. So, end of September is going to be crazy. Just the next few months is going to be a very good time for RPG fans. And so, expect more content on the site. Darren, who we just hired, is going to be making some video content. He's working on a Trails in the Sky video review for us, and so we'll post that once that is completed. And he has other stuff he wants to do as well to kind of work on that end, but we'll make sure to share that with you. And give him a shout out if you see him on Twitter. And thank you for joining us. So yeah, other than that, thanks a lot, guys. We'll catch you next time on the next edition of the TetraCast.
See ya.
See you later.
Bye-bye.